Every town and city is trying to strengthen their economic condition. Sometimes that creates competition between communities, and there may be duplication of efforts or extra expense during the struggle. With us today are two individuals who are helping bridge those efforts for the good of the whole. From the newly formed Lake County Economic Alliance are Joel Gorelick, who serves as chair of that organization, and David Lasser, who is the vice chair. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for having us.
Hey, and I'm glad you guys are on the show. This is kind of our new format, so you're my guinea pigs. What do you think?
Left, right?
Yeah, so we'll put the piece of cheese on the table.
There you go. We'll go after it.
So, Joel, you and I have known each other a long time, and you've kind of retired out of banking. Is it? Do you really call that a retirement?
It's semi-retired, but banking's always been a labor of love, and I'm not too sure that I could have just retired cold turkey. So People's Bank, my employer, and I've been in banking for 43 years, as you know, has provided me an opportunity to still stay involved with the bank. And so I'm spending some part-time hours still working with the bank. I am a director of the bank. And also it's given me time to spend on economic development, which is kind of goes hand in hand with what I've done.
So you're trying to tell me this is your hobby?
This is my hobby right now.
Okay. Well, I had to get that in a little bit because, you know, I know lots of people do know who you are, and you're probably getting tired of answering that question. So what are you doing now, Joel? You get a lot of that?
I do get a lot of it, and my response is always the same. I'm still doing some of what I've always done and doing some of what I've wanted to do.
There you go.
Economic
Well, I'm glad you dusted off the banker suit to be here today with us.
Thank you very much.
You look great, by the way. So, David, and you've been doing the real estate thing here for a long time now. I remember when your first signs went up, which is probably, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, about 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Holy cow, it's been a long time. So you're still hard at it. You don't get to retire yet?
No, not for a while.
You know, you're not old enough, you're not as old as Joel. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, I could probably switch over to banking at any point too.
Well, I appreciate both of you being here today. You know, you both have been business leaders here in Northwest Indiana for a long time, and just, you know, how do you kind of look at the economy? I mean, everybody wants to talk about the economy. How do you see the economy today? You bullish? You bearish?
We're bullish. We're the front line to a lot of activity. Whether it's someone looking at purchasing land, that means a building would be built and contractors would be hired, and employees would need homes, and it's often a nice thing to see when land activity picks up, or even just renovation of existing buildings.
Because you're commercial real estate,
all
right?
commercial,
I mean,
industrial.
All commercial, in case somebody didn't know that about you. What's your take on the economy these days?
We're bullish also. When I say we, from the banking standpoint, you know, for a number of years here, the last 2 or 3 years, we have been bullish. I think there's been some reluctance on the part of business people pulling the trigger because of some of the unknowns out there, some of the challenges and difficulties. But I could just tell you from our own pipeline that things look great for Lake County, Indiana, I think even nationally, based upon what we see as our pipeline for future development.
Then why do we continue to hear so many people still complaining about the economy? I mean, do you hear that? I mean, I still hear a lot of people going, oh, this economy is still terrible. Do you still hear that?
We do, and it's been a pretty severe national recession. But unemployment is still relatively high, but we think it's turning for the better.
Do you hear that too?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think a lot of it has to do locally with jobs, and we hear that all the time. And the concern about employment, I think there's concern about future opportunities, especially for the younger folk.
But you know, this is a recurring topic that we have on the show almost every time we touch on economics or anything about jobs. And I mean, I'm just going to ask you, do you know employers right now who have job openings?
No question.
Quite a few?
Yes.
How about you?
Yes, same.
Yet we hear over and over there are no jobs, right? You hear that from people? There's no jobs around here. Yet every business person I talk to who's actively involved in business, almost every one of them is like, I know a lot of people who have jobs. What's going on that we have that kind of disconnect?
Well, Keith, and you've been doing this for a long time, and you see this, is that the disconnect, I think, was based upon the skill sets of the people that are available and looking for employment versus what the employer needs. Primary metals is not like it used to be when we were younger. You know, I worked in the steel mills when I went to college, and I'll guarantee you there's not many of those jobs left.
That was mostly about your brawn, not your brain.
Right? Absolutely. So I think the skill sets are really an issue. I give the example of, you just drive down Klein Avenue, and I don't know if the sign is still there, but there was a billboard that I think ArcelorMittal had out there that they were looking for high-tech individuals, average salary $90,000 a year. Their problem is that they have a need, but they can't fill that need because of the skill sets of the.
I even see that at some of the times the lower levels, at some of these even $30,000, $40,000 jobs, you hear employers going, I can't find the right people. Do you hear this too?
We do, but it seems that there's more and more businesses being attracted, and they are opening for business, and they are filling their needs. To the extent that there's maybe not the perfect fits, that's where job training comes in and other assistant programs.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this new entity, but kind of starts from a point of view. I mean, here in the region, really all over the country, we have people, every community, as I said in the introduction, seems to be wanting to do economic development. I mean, and so it looks to me like we see is towns competing against counties and chambers competing against each other, everybody trying to fight over getting businesses to come or grow in their communities. Why do we have all these turf issues? I mean, do you see it that way? Do you see a lot of turf?
You know, no question about it. You know, one of the statistics that was quoted when I was first asked to get involved in this endeavor was that we have in Lake County, 17 economic development entities. And that's a number that I've heard as high as 23. Right. And I think it's because of, you know, it's not just geographic borders between towns and communities. I think there's a thought pattern there too. And the thought pattern is, what is ours, and never the twain shall meet. I see some of those barriers being broken down. I mean, we can talk with a number of things. You could talk about the 911 consortium. You can talk about the South Shore. You see communities are starting to think a little bit more regionally, if you will, or to a certain degree. There's still barriers to overcome. Right. But I mean, 5 years ago, we couldn't get communities together to buy salt. Right.
Well, you know, it's interesting when you say 17 to 23 in Lake County, that doesn't even count the chambers of commerce, does it?
No.
So if you add the chambers, which there's probably about a similar number, so here in Lake County, we've got probably closer to 40 entities trying to do some sort of economic development. So then we go over and we pick up Porter County, we add another 20 or so in, and LaPorte County with another 15 or so. You pick up the collar counties, go across into Illinois. We're easily at 100 entities trying to do economic development in a kind of a geographic area here at the bottom of the lake. That seems a little out of control, don't you think?
There are some larger entities like the Northwest Indiana Forum covering 7 counties, and organizations like ours will work, you know, hand in hand tightly with them.
So that's it. So what is this group then? What was the whole point of trying to pull this group together?
Well, Keith, I was approached back in November of 2012, right prior to my retirement, so the word must have gotten out, and by Dave Ryan, who is the executive director of the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce, which makes up Hammond and East Chicago, and Sue Reed, who's the executive director of Crossroads, which is Maryville, Crown Point. And it's kind of interesting because you have a north side and a south side chamber that are talking about we need to fix what's broken here. And their feeling was that we can't continue to do business the way we've done business in economic development. First of all, it's not economically feasible. Most likely it doesn't even work most of the time. Right. So they saw that something was broken or at least fractured, and their feelings were that, hey, we could come together from the north side of the county and the south side of the county and come up with an entity, an organization that can represent all the municipalities, or most of the municipalities and the township, and come across to potential applicants for economic development as one voice, we can do a lot better.
But that sounds like, to some extent, we're creating a third chamber. Is that? I mean, from the outside point of view, it almost
chambers
looks like
do so much more than just economic development. In many chambers, it's just an aspect of what they do. This is to solely be geared towards economic development, rather than, all the functions for festivals and parades and all the other business expos and things that chambers do for supporting their membership.
So if it takes on that specific focus of economic development, then how is that different than the local communities, what they're trying to do with a city government who's got an economic development corporation?
Well, here again, I think that you take a look at some of the municipalities and they struggle with economic development. If you have a municipality that has an appointed economic leader, typically appointed by town council or a mayor, that individual can wear a lot of hats. And if the mayor or the town board president needs that individual to fill a role someplace else, they're pulled out of economic development. That's the biggest issue that we see, is that, and not all communities are like this, but there's issues with follow through in economic development, especially in Lake County. I have been told by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation that we're only one of 2 or 3 counties in the state that has more than 2 or 3 economic development entities. And as we mentioned before, we have 17. Well, if you have 17 and just, let's say, 5 of those are efficient in what they do, what's that mean for the other 10?
So is the idea down the road then us to try to start seeing some consolidations of things? Is that kind of the
This
vision?
would be a county-wide consolidation. Each city and town is still going to have their own economic development committees and their own economic development departments of their cities and towns, but this is to simplify and to facilitate prospects coming to the county through a broader view. Some of them will say, I've heard it's time to look at Indiana and to look at Lake County, but I don't know where to go. I don't know why I should be in one part of the county or the other. I don't know where the rail lines are or where the zoning is, and it's an opportunity to roll out more of a red carpet for prospects.
Is it possible to look outside, as they say, beyond the box or whatever here? I mean, is it possible that we might see a town, a city, go, let's put our full economic development effort into this pool?
I think there's a good possibility of that happening. Don't nobody think that's a good possibility of that happening? I mean, here again, it goes down to economics. It comes down to, you could take a community. Let's pick one. Whiting is a good example. They may have one economic development person on board who does a lot of other things. Maybe a community like a Whiting might say, there's more of an efficient way to do this. Mm-hmm. Even though we will still control our own destiny here, maybe it might be better for our community if we're able to look to the alliance to take care of some of the preliminary and some of the basic economic development issues.
So where's your funding come from for this thing? I mean, where's the money coming from?
It's going to be from a combination of memberships and grants.
Okay. So is there staff to this?
We have
Are they recruiting
actually,
Joel Gorelick for this?
No, Joel Gorelick's going to take a pass on this one. We actually have our first true get-together, April 10th. And this initial get-together is for the municipal leaders only. And so we have invited and have come to the table most of the economic leaders within the communities and or the mayors or town officials. We have gotten some major financial commitments from some of those communities. That will be announced April 10th. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but that's where our funding will come from. Our goal is that we have a full-time economic development leader on board by the end of July, and I get in trouble when I specify a time period, but we're holding our own feet to the fire. We feel with the commitments that we have now, financial commitments that we have now from some of the key municipalities, that we can go forward.
Now, how does this differ from the economic development entity that was formed for the region? I think it was the Economic Development District that was kind of operated out through the Forum and around the Forum and NERPC and so forth. How is this different than that?
Well, each one of them is different for different purposes of the RDA funding. This is for the economic development, for the marketing of and the assistance of facilitating prospect acquisitions of properties.
Which one is?
Ours.
So this is about for property acquisition. Say that one more time. It's for what?
Well, I mean, there's probably 5 different other organizations or so. You've got the Indiana Economic Development Corporation,
right,
which is kind of the main mothership over the state's economic development funding. NIPSCO has an arm of economic development.
Don's
the Northwest Indiana Regional, the Northwest Indiana Forum covers 5 counties, or 7 counties, excuse me. And then the RDA is the state, but they have regions, so we're a region of the RDA. Porter County has an economic alliance. So what we're forming is the Lake County Economic Alliance.
Okay.
It's specifically more to Lake County.
To Lake County.
And you bring up the Forum, and we've been asked that question before. Well, is that the job of the Forum? And the Forum has actually come out and endorsed us and says we need to have this in Lake County. They have it in some of the other counties that they have 1 or maybe 2 entities. Like Porter County basically has 2 entities to go to. So they've endorsed us. They want to see us become the cooperative head of Lake County as it relates to economic development.
Well, the Forum's also very focused on kind of acquisition. They look heavily at trying to recruit businesses to come here often, right?
Right. Yeah. The recruit, but that's part of our interest too. Okay. You know as well as I do that economic development is like a 3-prong approach here. It's not only new businesses coming in, but maintaining the businesses you have is just important, and enhancing those businesses. And probably 60, that's my own number, but 65% of economic development is about job retention and expansion. Don't get me wrong, we're very happy, and there's a lot of success stories recently of businesses coming into our region and our county that are new to us, and we need to focus on that too. But the other part, it's a 3-prong approach to economic development.
Yeah, and I'm pretty heavy on that expansion piece and retention piece because I've been around a long time to hear those good, solid businesses that have been here a long time, like the businesses you've been involved in, who say, hey, we're here, we still have a lot of people working for us, don't forget the ones who've been here forever, and give all the glory to the new kid on the block, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so is a lot of what you're focused on trying to work with those businesses who say, we need more land, we need more space, we need more.
Well, one of the major efforts will be to do a expansion retention survey through the combined mailing lists and databases of the chambers and the sources that we'll gather from the cities and towns to work up what can we do to help you? What can each city and town do to help you?
Do you guys sometimes just get a little, I know I do, get a little frustrated with it? It seems like we continue to take incremental steps here. Just, every year we do a little bit more, and as opposed to why don't we just, we still name 5 big entities. Why can't we get to the point where we go, why can't we put all this together and really have a powerful organization that really does some incredible things for our whole region? I mean, because in some ways, not necessarily we're competing with, but look at the resources that Chicago has and some of these other areas. If we had that all together, wouldn't that be pretty powerful?
No question about it. And you may have overheard what was discussed when I was asked to initially get involved with the alliance. I, as a banker, and my background is lending, commercial lending, would always get frustrated when I was trying to deal with the community, not just within Lake County, but to try to get good information, try to get follow through, try to get someone to be active in the pursuit of a business. That's extremely frustrating. That was the word that I used. And that's why I think, especially for Lake County, the time has come for an alliance, because if I, as a user, am frustrated, what do you think that business is?
Oh, and you hear that all the time from businesses. I know you hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, why is this such a struggle to make this happen? Do you think this entity is really going to help that process?
Very much so.
In what way is that going to help, you think?
Facilitating the whole process of, particularly for companies that are completely new to the area or have previously not, don't live here. It can be everything from an overview of schools and lifestyle to specific buildings that are available. I mean, the internet has certainly grown and is a source of information on property, but a lot of it becomes pretty static after a while, and you have to get in the car and meet people and learn about the communities.
I wish that's one of the things our leaders would get, because I know you guys hear this, people come from the outside, they don't get it, why we're so fragmented here, because you go other places, there's more consolidation, and they go, hey, I found one place to go to. Here, we're still even talking with this consolidation. There's still 5 big ones and 100 little ones, and so they come here, and it doesn't make us look very good.
Yep, and I'm not sure that consolidation is the right term. The alliance can't.
Cooperation?
It's cooperation, and a synergy is what it is. And we're not out there to replace the municipality's economic development arm. We're there to help them and to facilitate and do some of the things that maybe they can't do. You asked a question about chambers before. We have some excellent chambers. I mean, we talked really about Crossroads and Lakeshore, but we also have some chambers that are event-driven. They're not truly economic development entities. Can we benefit those communities? Is there something that we can do that they're not doing now to benefit them? One of the strengths that Dave Lasser brings to the table because of his background, I mean, he's been working on a number of what we call our deliverables to some of the investors that are going to be a part of us, and some of the software as far as site location, survey retention, these types of things.
Well, I think what you guys are doing is great, and this is probably a continuing story that we need to kind of unfold as time goes on. We're out of time, so we'll have to get you guys back and see where we're at with this maybe in a year, and see if we can continue to make some great progress.
I think it'll be an exciting year.
In the meantime, thanks for the leadership that you both supply and helping continue us to get to be more cooperative and cross some of these boundaries for everybody.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you guys being on here. Thanks. I'm going to end this show a little differently. Usually you are showered with a rain of wisdom from me. Perhaps you classify my closing on each show as a shower of thought-provoking prose. Some of you may feel it is more like a thunderstorm of my opinion. Others might describe my final comments as a snow job. No matter how you categorize it, today the heavens will part and you will have clear skies. Rather than a long diatribe on some subject, I will just convey a simple thanks for watching Lakeshore Focus, particularly to those of you who watch it regularly. I do want to hear your comments and suggestions, so don't be afraid to write a short email. I would also like to remind you that you can catch Lakeshore Focus on our website and view old episodes. Click on Lakeshore Public Television, scroll down to the handsome picture of me, click again on my face, and ta-da, you will see a list of all the old shows for your viewing pleasure. Our website and email address are on your television right now. Next week, we will have a couple of local landscapers with us to talk about how to make your yard look like a vision of paradise. For some of you, it may just be some good tips on keeping your neighbors from posting a sign on your lawn that says, "Beware." Join us at our new time of 7:30 on Friday evening. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.